Buenas tardes. Hola, buenas tardes. Okay. Vamos a continuar con la segunda sesión del proyecto Fachadas de reloj. En esta lo que vamos a hablar es de modelos de negocio y cadena de valor para una industria de fachadas circular. Y dos de mis compañeros, René Reich de la de KU Leuven y Benny Giajono from the Coventry University, nos van a comentar los desarrollos que se han realizado durante el proyecto en esta temática. Por lo que, René, cuando quieras.
Thank you. I welcome you to the second part of the facade reverse logistics workshop we will have today and tomorrow. This is the second part. My name is René Reich, and I'm going to present you or show you the business model aspects of facade reverse logistics. So as I already said, the magical word business model. What do we understand as a business model? So following the definition of Osterwalder, business model has three major components. We have the value perspective, so the value proposition. What wants a company to deliver to the customer? Why should the customer accept the offer? Then the value creation and delivery, how to reach the customers. That's also an interplay with logistics, with technology, with design. And then the last one, the value capture. What are the actual costs? What to deliver that value? So we will keep throughout this little short presentation those three positions always in mind. Why is it then important maybe to considering shifting your business model? Well, you could find new customers. By shifting your business model, you're also shifting the cost structure, or you can offer different prices. You can offer a different product at the end. So you might reach new customer fields. This broadens your spectrum in the industry, and it also could differentiate you from other competitors within the market. So why is it important in a circular economy, a sustainable economy perspective, to do such shifts? On the one hand, if we see the values, so far in the linear economy, when we're producing a facade or we're extracting the materials, we manufacture the elements, we distribute, we use it. The use phase would be implemented in the house, and then it's there for 15, 20 years. And then we dismantle the building and scrap it. So you would have an immediate reduction, loss of value, because you put effort into a product, into an element, and then it's destroyed by its function and its materials. In the circular economy, we're trying to preserve the value. So to preserve the function, the design, the idea, the material. So how do we actually do that in the circular economy? I'm just here briefly pointing out 5 ideas. First, waste equals value. So that the waste of somebody else or your own waste is actually, again, raw material for other products and other resources. Then we have the maintain, repair, manufacture, so to repair your facades. We have fewer and renewable resources, narrowing down, so that's the typical being more efficient, getting more product out of the same material. Then we have the life cycle cooperation or co-creation, so to rethink the idea of your product. And at the end, we have the functional economy or pay as service. So that means that actually the consumer is not buying the product, but pays for the service of a facade, of the product itself, of the function of the product itself. I'm just showing you 2 case studies. One, waste equals value strategy, and one based on the pay per service strategy. So the first idea, waste is value, is to close the circle, that when we dismantle one building, we dismantle also the facade, we're getting out the materials, we transform them again to raw materials, to get them again, let's say in the case of aluminium, to make again aluminium frames, aluminium windows, and to implement them again in houses. So what do we see here? In the value proposition, what is the value proposition? The value is that it's a valuable input for another product, for another process. What is the value creation we have? Our activities and partnerships to eliminate waste. So the idea is why we do that is to eliminate waste on the one hand and to reduce virgin materials extracted from the ground for a new house. And what is the value capture we have? Is that we're reducing the environmental costs of incinerating waste, dig down waste, and to excavate virgin new materials. The other example I promised you, pay as a service. So that's more interesting. I brought you here the case study of Econation, which are little glass domes on the top of a roof of, let's say, an industrial plant like here. You could install these glass domes, and you will have mirrors in there, shiftable mirrors, which is taking the sunlight and redirecting the light into the buildings. We could perfectly imagine it here, where we will have lamps here. We would just have an opening, and then a mirror would shift or mirror the sunlight. Of course, this all goes by a little sensor who is detecting the sun and then shifting the light. The interesting thing here is this company could have sold those glass domes as products to the customers, but they decide not to. They are actually measuring how much light is going into the houses, and they're measuring how much energy is saved by the building owner. And then they're paying of the reduced energy bill the service for the light. So the company is paid for the light they are delivering from the sun by their technology. So the consumer in that case is not the owner of the glass domes, not of the light provider. It is a service company who is having a contract with the consumer. You're getting the money, and no, they're getting the money, and you're delivering the light, not the dome, the glass dome. So if we analyze this one briefly, what is the value proposition? So we provide service to satisfy the customer need. The customer need in that case is light, not electricity, not the dome, not the product. Value creation. We have a much more integrated value chain. At the end of the life, this dome will be taken from the company, getting back to the company, and can be implemented into another building, or can be recycled within the same facility. And then, of course, the value capture is the consumer pay for the service. Of course, this comes with some little tricks. One of them is the financial aspects. In the direct sales model, in the classical one, you have as a company the direct investment of producing your product, and then after the sale, you're getting 100% of the revenues. In the pay-per-use system, of course, the company has the direct investment for the production, and then getting over the years, over the months, for the service, the revenue. For the consumer, when would the consumer accept such an offer is, of course, when the total cost of ownerships, so buying the thing, is higher than the total cost of usage. It's clear. For the producer service company, there are, of course, the challenges that you have to valuing the cash flow new, you have to calculate all this new, rethink it, and of course it extends your balance sheet. So some companies source it out and do it with service or banks together, and you harvest value over the time period. If you're interested in shifting your business model, you should start it with the value capture. So what is actually the service or the idea you're delivering to your customers. What is the facade element for doing for your customer actually? Not the element itself, but the function of behind that. To get some ideas, if you're interested in shifting your business, I have here two beautiful homepages where you get ideas. One is from the Flemish government called BMIX, and the other one is Circulator, where you can see the best cases so far implemented in the circular economy. With that, I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to hand over to my colleague, who is taking over the next part.
Thank you. Well done, René. So, good afternoon, everyone. As René mentioned early on, he's talking about the strategy, about the customer proposition, customer value. So what I'm going to talk in about 10 minutes' time is we're going to look into the operational and supply chain issues. What is it that's involved in making circular economy works, particularly for the case of facade? So what he's talking about was to look into a possibility of shifting the business model from selling the facade into leasing, which means that the ownership of the facade, strictly speaking, will remain within the OEM or the manufacturers or the sellers. And then the customers may be paying in full or in partial to the supplier. For sure, from the customer's point of view, it's nice because then this is what we have, the so-called fashionable, but yet sustainable. So fashionable means that we can change the facade, we can move from one type to another, and at the same time, we become sustainable. But with one condition, that we are able to turn the facade into something else. You have seen this morning presentation, the process or the processes involved in the reverse logistics of the facade. I'm not going to go into that detail again. However, if we break that down into the different ways of looking at the supply chain, I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with this model. Everything starts from the manufacturers, and then the facade is produced and delivered to the customers. So, in order for the circular economy to work, then we need to be able to get the product from the customers, maybe to be repaired and then to be refurbished, maybe remanufactured, dismantled, bring it back to the factories, and then recycled. So in this diagram, you'll see there are two ways of movement or flow of parts or components. Forward logistics. Yeah, on the top part, this is forward logistics, which means that we're delivering to the customers, and the return is the reverse logistics. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side there, the reverse logistics means that there's a reverse flow of the traditional supply chain, flow of secondary products, maybe used products, second-hand product, and inbound logistics for manufacturers, and also for the purpose of value recovery. So when we look at the supply chain, then we could say that when we move our business model from selling to leasing, for example, then the shape and forms of our supply chain is going to be changed. Because traditionally, we are delivering products. But now, with the circular economy business models, and also the product service systems model, then we are not only delivering the products, but we also delivering the service. So there will be a lot more service partners involved in addition to the product manufacturers. So what are the issues that we need to think about, we need to consider when we move to circular economy or reverse logistics business model? So the first one is the facility. Yeah? When we are delivering the product, we tend to use, or we usually use, the distribution centers. But when we take back the products from the circulation, then we need the collection centers. So we need a facility. We need to think about where these collection centers is going to be, what are their roles, the volume of part harvesting, and so on. Secondly, we need to think about the inventory, because in this case, there are two sources of inventory or spare parts. One that come from our suppliers, that could be the brand new components or brand new products, but also from our customers, from the second-hand or from the used product. So when we forecast the availability, or when we develop the inventory models for our system, then we need to think about both the new parts and also the used parts. Thirdly, sourcing, like I mentioned before, is closely related to the inventory. We wanted to know whether we source internally, and what we mean by internally means that coming from our customers, also externally from our suppliers. Is it going to be combined virgin parts and also used parts? Demand forecast is also interesting because we are now leasing our products, which means that one way or the other we will know that products will come back to us at some point. Yeah? And if we know that the part is coming back to us, the idea is perhaps we could shift from the demand forecast to demand management, because we could manage in terms of contracting and so on. Transportation. This is also interesting because when we think about traditional logistics and supply chain, we want to reduce the transportation cost. That's obvious. But when we're dealing with second-hand product, the issues of cost is even more important, yeah? Because the profit is going to be lower than our brand new products. So what's the network? How we design the network, transportation network? What's the mode of that transport? Pricing is also an interesting issue, isn't it? Because when you are selling, when you're producing this product, you might be thinking, how many percent I'm still selling brand new products, how many percent I'm going to do leasing, for example. And that way we need to have a good strategy on how to design the pricing. Collaboration and competition, probably you have heard this term co-opetition, yeah? So that's also interesting issue. I don't want you to read this mathematical model, but this is one of the considerations when we design the facility, because we include the forward and also reverse logistics. And because of that, trust me, it's very complex, mathematically complex. How do we deal with this complexity? There are many ways, certainly. We work. Mathematicians will like to develop new models. However, what we could, in this community, try is that perhaps we could use the advancement in IT. Perhaps we could use BIM. We could implement the functions in BIM that then we can embed the circularity, we can embed the information, for example, how we can embed the testing and also the grading and reprocessing of the salvage materials. The idea is that hopefully we know when these materials will last and how many percent that can be recovered right from the very beginning of the design process. So in summary, there are three things that we need to consider when we talk about the operational issues. So the first one, the operational itself, the cost of operations, yeah, be they facilities, inventory, demand management, and so on. But also we need to remember the technicalities of this. What is the technicalities? How to track the materials over the long period of time. Tracking the secondary product, demarcation of scope between diverse products, which one that is supplied as a product service systems, which one is supplied as the pure product. And finally, this was the quite important issue when we run this workshop with our colleagues in the UK, that contractual is really important. Because, like I said to you before, when we're delivering this model We are moving from selling to the customers. We are moving to contractual agreements. So over 10 years, for example, how do we do this? How do we ensure that the customers are still getting the best value out of it? Okay, so I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Do you believe that product service or leasing models are this the main ways of implementing circular reverse logistics? Do we need that, or can we also go with? Okay, can you hear? Okay, my question is, if product service models like leasing are the only way of implementing the reverse logistics, or could we also stick with our classical product delivery models to achieve that?
Thank you. So the question is PSS or circular model the only model to implement reverse logistics, right? I think my direct answer is no, because when we talk about circular economy, it's a lot more than just leasing. Leasing is just one of the available, so many different models. If we go to a different part of the world, where I'm from, for example, there are a lot more businesses that will benefit from reverse logistics activities or reverse logistics business model. They may some companies only working on collecting from other people and sell it as a secondary part. Some companies also buying from others and then recondition some parts and sell it and make it another product. So these people are not leasing, they are selling, but with the possibility of the circular economy model, these business opportunities are opening. So there are a lot more that we can do. If you have any...
No, beautiful answer. Nothing to add to that.
Any other questions? You may ask questions in Spanish, then my colleague will translate for you.
Yeah.
Maybe Julian wants to ask a question.
No, mis compañeros me preguntan si, bueno, los que habéis estado aquí escuchando la sesión, si esto os parece interesante, creéis que se puede aplicar en las temáticas en las que estáis trabajando, o al final consideréis que os queda un poco lejos. No sé si alguien se anima a contestar. Okay.
No?
Thank you very much. And,
Thank you very much.
Mañana a las 4:30 vamos a seguir hablando de aspectos relacionados con esto de forma un poquito más extensa. Y acabaremos con una pequeña copa de vino y algo para picar, por lo cual si están mañana por aquí, por favor, acompáñennos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Well done.